All right, so introducing the book of John, starting with the author and the date. Author is John, the son of Zebedee and the apostle. And there's a thing called genuineness, and basically it's whenever there is in the book, if it says, like if it starts out with, I, Paul, wrote this, right? Then the genuineness is, okay, did the person who put their name in it write the book? Of course, John, in the gospel according to John, never, in the book, he never says, I, John, wrote this. But there's, of course, really good evidence that he did write it. The fact that he never mentions John the Apostle in the book is, right, he refers to himself as the disciple whom Jesus loved. And in John 1, as we were reading this morning, he says, whenever he refers to John the Baptizer, he just says John. Now, the reason he did that was because the assumption was the readers knew that the author was John, so whenever he's saying John, he doesn't have to say John the Baptizer, because he knows that they're talking about John the Baptizer just by him simply just saying John. And another reason that's not necessarily within the scriptures, but if you look at early church history, if you look at Irenaeus, he's an early church writer, he ascribes this gospel account to John. And he also, from that writing, we also can infer that it was written from Ephesus around AD 85 to AD 95. Now that's kind of the standard position. There's other positions. I think, some think it was written earlier. Others think it was written later. I definitely don't think it was written later. We do have a piece of John, a very small manuscript of John that dates to the early 2nd century, late 1st century. So it had to be written before then, of course. So I would say definitely within the 1st century. And so I've not really taken necessarily a firm stance on the date, but this is one of the dates, if not earlier. Yes?
So do we know how old he was when he died?
I'm sure that there's probably some evidence on that. I haven't looked into that personally. I mean,
Is that would make him over 100, I would think. Or somewhere around there.
I mean, if you're looking at, I haven't looked into it personally, so I wouldn't be able to give you an answer on that. But for some reason, it's saying full screen. It does that sometimes. If anyone else has some insight into that, feel free to share it. Or
It says that he was possibly born around 6 to 10 AD. Let's see. Death around 98 to 100 AD. Possibly in his 80s or 90s. That doesn't seem to make sense. He's the only one who wasn't martyred, wasn't he?
yeah.
If he were an apostle, it would have been,
It would have been what?
I don't know, maybe not, I'm thinking wrong.
Safari says he's 95.
Oh, no, so he could, yeah, so it's 6 AD, so I'm in my mind, I'm thinking.
I mean, if he was born in 6,
Yeah,
started
yeah,
at ministry,
Yeah.
in his 20s.
Yeah, he's just younger,
Yeah.
so it's about 6 to 10 years.
Okay.
I mean, you think about it,
Maybe wrong.
and you link the apostle, the disciple who loved, leaned upon Jesus' breast, breast. doesn't seem like an older person in their 40s would be leaning on Jesus. But a younger person looking up to him, probably more so, seems to look to me a little more fitting. You know, doesn't that strike y'all, you know, a little odd?
Well, if he was born in 2 years, if he was born in AD 10, Christ was AD 30, he would only be about 20.
That's what I'm saying. So, but I mean, the text clearly says that the disciple who he loved was leaning on his breast, on Jesus' bosom. Right? I mean, today you don't see that happening, but I mean, do you see an older person doing that? Leaning on a younger person? Maybe because they admired Jesus so much that an older person might. And it seems to me like it'd be more of a younger person doing that.
So, talking about John leaning on Jesus' breast, where one of the things, if you're looking at John and the Gospel according to John, and this is just a side note, personally I like to refer to it as the Gospel according to John. You can refer to it as the Gospel of John, but I don't really see, and a lot of people refer to it as the Gospel of John, but really it's the Gospel of Christ. So that's why I personally call it the Gospel according to John. But that's just a side note. So John, the author, was a very close eyewitness of Jesus Christ himself. And he was one of the inner circle. So John, James, Peter, they were in the inner circle. They were the closest of Jesus' apostles, closest to him. He leaned on Jesus' breast, so that indicated, you know, the closeness, the close relationship that John had to Jesus. And then this firsthand testimony, if we go to 1 John 1, so 1 John 1, that which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked upon, studied him, our hands have handled the word of life. For the life was manifested, and we have seen it, and bear witness, and show unto you that eternal life which was with the Father, and was manifested unto us. That which we have seen and heard, and declare we unto you, that ye also may have fellowship with us. And truly, our fellowship is with the Father and with the Son, with his Son, Jesus Christ. So, as I mentioned in the sermon, one of the purposes for which John is writing is to refute Gnosticism. And the Gnostics did not believe, they believed that the flesh was evil. So they're saying, okay, well, the Word couldn't have come in the flesh because the flesh is evil. So he really just came in some sort of spirit form. But John, an eyewitness of the Word who became flesh, is saying, no, we looked upon him, we handled him, we heard him. So he's saying, I'm a witness. I am an eyewitness of what happened. And I'm writing, if we go to the purpose, if we go to John 20 through 31, John, why are you writing? And many other signs truly did Jesus in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written that ye might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you might have life through his name. So that is why John is writing his gospel account, that these people may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Messiah, the Son of God. He is God himself. He is equal with God. He is the Word who became flesh. He was God, and he came to earth so that he could redeem us, so that he could set us free from sin. In the book of John, over and over, you're going to see the word glory, glorified. And so it always points to Jesus' glorification, that's referring to what happened on the cross, his glorification, his sacrifice. So writing to prove that, no, this Jesus, or this Word, he became flesh. He didn't come in just some spirit form. He took on human flesh, and he is Christ. He is God. So the audience to whom John is writing, primarily Christians, right? John is written as an apology, a defense of Jesus' deity and his coming in the flesh. The early church faced this false doctrine, and they needed an inspired eyewitness to straighten out the facts, to say, no, this Word, he is God. He is the Son of God, and you have to believe in him to have that life. And of course, secondarily written for non-Christians, this apology that Jesus is the Christ, it's not only apologetic, but it's also evangelistic, because believing that Jesus Christ is the Son of God not only strengthens the Christian's faith, but it also engenders faith in those who do not believe, believing that Jesus is the Christ. Another thing, I don't have it up here, but throughout the book of John, especially in the first half of the book, John is almost writing to encourage Jewish Christians, because throughout the book of John, there are these examples, and he keeps on bringing up that these Jewish leaders were threatening these people, these Jews who believe, they were threatening to kick them out of the synagogue. And they were, threatening to, if you were kicked out of the synagogue, it was like you were an outcast. It was hard for you to live, right? So he's encouraging these Jewish Christians who are getting kicked out of the synagogue that, it's better to believe than to not believe. So he's also encouraging them as well. So the synoptics, the word sin, it means the prefix sin, it means like together, and then optics, that means to look. So synoptics, to look together essentially. So the synoptics would be Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Those are the synoptic gospel accounts. And John's gospel account is very different from Matthew, Mark, Luke, the synoptics. And that's because John is writing for a different purpose. He's writing so that his readers may explicitly confess that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, John 20, 30 through 31. So the synoptics are, just simplifying it, right? They're more biographical, and John is more theological. So synoptics, and you can interchange these, but mainly synoptics, what did Jesus do? John, who is Jesus? The whole purpose of John, Jesus is the Son of God. And that's what he's proving. So if you look at the Gospel according to John, something that you're not going to read are the parables. You're not going to read about the parables of Jesus. And there's this theory, I don't necessarily hold to it or something, but they're going to say, okay, well, John is so much different than Matthew, Mark, Luke, the synoptics, because they're based off a different source. That Matthew, Mark, Luke, they had this source and they were looking to it, and Matthew copied Mark and Luke did this, right? And John had a different source. But the reason that John is different is because, again, he's writing for a different purpose. He's writing explicitly that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. So the reason that you're not going to find the parables is because it's not focused on the kingdom, the parables of the kingdom, right? He focused more on the metaphoric I am statements. So you're going to find that throughout the gospel according to John is the phrases I am, I think I have it on the next slide, right? I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am the door. I am the good shepherd. I am the resurrection and life. Over and over again, you're going to see this. And So the parables had the twofold meaning. If you remember, they were to reveal and to conceal, right? If you in Matthew 13, when Jesus is explaining the parable of the sower, remember what did he say to, what did he say? Okay, the parable was like for the, I guess the Jewish leaders, the ones who didn't want to believe. If you remember, what did he say?
He said it, because they were asking, why do you speak in parables?
Right.
He said it was revealed, it was supposed to be revealed to them, what it meant, but not to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of like Revelation.
Yep. Yeah, so those who had a disposition of unbelief, they're going to look at these parables and they're going to say, man, what does this mean? This doesn't make any sense. But those who really want to believe, they're going to look at those parables and they say, oh, well, yeah, this makes sense. So it's almost like there's like a hiddenness and a revelation part of it. But John, again, he's writing for a different purpose. He's writing so that you could explicitly confess Jesus is the Christ. So he doesn't use the parabolic language, but more of the straightforward language. I am. Jesus over and over again, I am. So the book of John you can break it up into two parts. You have the first 12 chapters and then the last part of the book. So the first 12 is going to be categorized as the book of signs, and then chapters 13 through 21 is the book of glory. Right? We talked about earlier, or I mentioned over and over again, you're going to see the word glory, glorification, or glorified, where Jesus is talking about his crucifixion. And John, all of these chapters here is basically the last week, if I remember correctly, don't quote me on that, if not the last few weeks of his earthly ministry, right? But the book of signs, if you look at John 2:11, someone read John 2:11. I'm in 1 John. Yeah, John 2:11.
This beginning of signs Jesus did in Cana of Galilee and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him.
So this was, as it says, the first, the beginning of, the King James says miracles. Really, a better translation would be signs. So that was the first of the signs of Jesus. And the second one is the healing of the official son in John 4, the healing of the paralytic, John 5, feeding of the 5,000, John 6, walking on water, also John 6, healing the man born blind, John 9, the raising of Lazarus. So these are these 7 signs in John. And if you look at John 20, 30 through 31, if someone wants to read that for us, John 20, 30 through 31.
And truly, Jesus gave many of the signs in the presence of his disciples, which is not written in this book. But there are things are written that you may believe that Jesus is Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name.
So John, he fleshes out these 7 signs, meaning he mentions them and then he describes them in a lot of detail, right? What did Jesus do? What happened? He does that 7 times. Now, the word sign, the Greek word Simeon, it shows up other times in John, but it's like, okay, Jesus performed these signs and in a great crowd. It's like, it's just mention it and then not go into explicit detail of what exactly happened. But 7 times he mentions the word sign, and then he gives a long information about what exactly happened. And the word sign, the reason why I said, like in the King James, it translates it in some places miracle, like in John 2:11, it says miracles. Well, it better be translated signs, because in the original language, it makes a distinction between miracles, signs, and wonders. So you have miracle, that would be dunamis, sign, Simeon, wonder, teros. Now, interestingly, the word dunamis, miracle, does not actually appear in John. And so if you think about the words dunamis, that literally means power. Simeon, sign, that would be like, you think about a sign on the road. What does it do, right? It signifies, right? If you a stop sign, it signifies that you have to stop. A yield sign, it signifies. So it's pointing to something. It's showing you something. And then wonder is, oh wow, wonder. Think about the word wonder. So these signs are signifying, they're showing, they're pointing to the fact that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. Again, going back to the purpose of John writing. So this book of signs, the first 12 chapters, it starts with the prologue, which we covered this morning, and then interwoven are the discourses of Nicodemus, the woman at the well, the bread of life, the good shepherd, and then it ends in growing polarization. So that's the first 12 chapters. The chapters 13 through 21 is what's known as the Book of Glory. So you have the farewell discourse. It has such a long discourse of, if you have a Bible with the words of Christ in red and you look at 13 through 17, I mean, all of it is red, right? And it's this extended discourse of Jesus talking to his disciples. So that's 13 through 17, then the Passion narrative, and then resurrection appearances, and the epilogue. So that is basically kind of just an overview, bird's eye view of the book of John, and especially focusing on the purpose. Why was John written? And it's John 20:30 through 31 really is the key verse of the entire book. That ye may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. That is why John is writing.